All right. So, welcome again to this series of meetings that I'm doing. Move that over right there. You can adjust yourself however you want to. I see people up there. Everything is good in terms of sound and quality of everything. Gorgeous. All right. So, the reason why I am doing this meeting or these meetings is because I have work to do and I want to get that work done in an engaging way. Um, and I want to make sure that these meetings are productive. Now, a couple of things I did not address yesterday when I was going through the announcements is, first of all, I was talking about Oracle Palooza Virtual. I made mention of it. And today is the last day of Oracle Palooza Virtual. There are swag boxes. There's many things. I did get the Dreamweavers Oracle delivered to me just now, and I'll definitely be using it in my YouTube videos if you follow me on my YouTube channel. When I go through the different placements of like Saturn through the signs, or go through the weekly astrology videos, not necessarily for like a reading for every single transit that I discuss in those weekly videos, but certainly for the week just in general. And I probably won't end up doing that on my videos, my special horoscope videos. And the special horoscope videos include when Mercury, Venus, and Mars go retrograde in a sign, when Jupiter or Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto, or the nodes enter a sign. That's what the big, the big special horoscope videos are about. Those planetary transits. The aspects, aspects are aspects. There's going to be a really significant aspect of Jupiter and Uranus on April 21st of next year. So April 21st is when the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction next year in Taurus is going to be exact. It's just going to be about, radical upheavals and sudden changes in the financial markets. There's going to be so much. I'm going to talk more about that when we get closer to it. But for those who have received your swag boxes, you should all have those if you're going to the event. And the Dreamweavers Oracle deck is getting sold here in this space at this event, and you can go buy your own deck if you want. I already have it, so I'm good and outfitted. All I need is the integrating more spiritual practice and more of those things into my life that I have been talking about for ages and not doing. And I am sick of it. I'm really sick of it. And I need to change some things around in my world so that I can pull more oracle cards and do those things like that. But so other announcements, I really can't think of too many things. I did get somebody saying to me, "Oh, well, you shouldn't put this online and you should make it public." And I'm not going to take it down. I'm not going to take down last week's meeting or yesterday's meeting or this week's meeting. They are going up on the channel, and I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to negotiate on it because I really want my mental and emotional, intellectual energy to be out there, not tucked away in a private land where I must filter myself. And I'm done doing that. And this is partially what I enjoy doing here, and I want to share that. I don't want to be private about it. So We are going to be resuming this article. Remember how I said that this would be a super productive live stream? There's a bird on there. Scare it away! There. Okay. I just saw a bird sitting right next to a tree. So, let me pull. I don't need that. Okay. Let me actually pull over the music stand and I'm going to read to you this article. I'm going to do some things that are productive and then I'm going to finish watching a video that I already started. The video is from a YouTube channel called Owning Authenticity with Carly. She is speaking about projection in terms of the transit that we are moving through right now, which is the South Node in Libra and the North Node in Aries, which started back in July and it's going to last until January 11th of 2025. So that is that. And I have a video on that transit if you want to go check it out. Now, I'm going to read through this from start to finish, just so that I am fresh in my mind in terms of what I need to do, which is only read this kind of thing. I'm going to be real and raw, and I'm going to own my authenticity when I say that there are, the things that I make time for, apart from all of what I'm dealing with the obsessive compulsive stuff that I'm dealing with, those things that I make time for, I do a lot to make time for those things, and they really need to be worth it. And at this point in my life, what I have time for, like real time for, is things that are spiritual and meaningful and valuable to me. And this kind of content that is as dry as a bone about art and all this kind of things like that is not really cutting the mustard unless somebody can come here and tie in a spiritual connection to it. Now, why am I taking a class on, the humanities? Why am I taking a class about the humanities through the arts? Well, it's something I'm interested in, but I really wish that I felt that there was more time to really invest in such things like that. So anyway, so this article that you all should have in you got the email saying that we would be reading it today, so I hope that you have it out. I can see that people have it out. If you do not, please go grab that article. I'm just going to wait about 2 minutes while everyone's grabbing that article, and then I'm going to just start playing a little bit while people are grabbing that article. So at 2:25 p.m. everyone should have the article. Open up, we were going a child, come on to the fray. Round to be hard, all right, so I would indulge. Oh, okay. So actually, I'm just feeling in the mood right now, so I'm going to be very, very quick and brief about this. I'm just going to sing a little song here before getting into the article for a moment. So keep that out. But I'm just going to do this one song called, I just made the title up spontaneously, Friends and Child. Friends and child and making it all turn out alright. Inside could feel good for the moment, lasting hard again, making the sound come in descent. For the moment, lasting now again from the heartbreak of the night. Friends and child and making love for riders. Never mind about the seconds and realize may come to nothing new from the pain of the past for you. That I could see myself alive. Friends and child and back at home we can see our faces looking upon all of the shadows will come along, coming away, all and gone from all the reasons that we may be looking over tops of mighty eagles. That's the results of me. How can I wouldn't say for the moment down. Friends and child and moments could easily be forgotten, but you won't be forgotten. Okay, I don't know. Maybe I'll develop it sometime. So I'll get through reading this article and then maybe sing the song again. See if I can make it into something different. Okay. So No Museum Left Behind is the name of the article. So it says as a subtitle of the article, the subtitle is The Relocation of the Barnes Foundation to Downtown Philadelphia is Fueled by Ignorance and Avarice, not altruism. So I'm going to try to dig out as much substance as I can, but we'll see what happens and make it too in the weeds and too technical. I think I'm finding my niche for things that I enjoy talking about. So it says by Lance S. Blunt is the name of the author. So this is the article. Marin, Pennsylvania, moving through the Barnes Foundation, you feel immersed in a complete work of art, as you do when deep in the naive of a Gothic cathedral. The Barnes seem wonderfully timeless and out of place. The world and the works of art are in sync. Mature trees can be viewed through all windows, the arcs of their branches echoing pictures, arabesques. The only sounds are of the occasional bird outside, the measured movements of a handful of visitors, the creak of old parquet beneath your feet. Artworks flirt and flit. Parts of paintings, like flashes of jewels or glimpses of flesh, pull and have you from one to the next. No matter how much you know about the Barnes Foundation, no matter how often you've been told that it houses the most important collection of Impressionist, Post-Impressionist, and early modern art in the world, nothing especially too deceptively and small scale prepares you for the experience inside the museum. First, there is the artwork itself. The catalog is staggering. Albert Barnes acquired old master paintings by Canaletto, Goya, Hals, El Greco, um, Titian, um, Tatian, and Veronese, and important examples of ancient Egyptian, Greco-Roman, medieval, Native American, African, Near Eastern, Middle Eastern, and Far Eastern art. Then there is the collection of modern European works. One of the largest in existence, it includes pictures by Chagall de Chirico, Damiar, Duffy, um, Gauguin, Klee, Marquette, Miro, Pissarro, Hovis de Chavannes, Redon, Rosault, Signac, and Sisley. Barnes brought 11 works by Degas, even 7 by Van Gogh, 6 by Seurat, 4 Manets, and 4 Monets. He purchased 18 Rosaces and 46 Picassos. Barnes acquired 21 pictures by Soutine, whom he discovered, and it is no exaggeration to say that if you have not been to the Barnes, you have not seen Matisse, Cézanne, or especially Renoir. The collection holds 59 Matisses, 69 Cézannes, and a definitive 181 Renoirs. Barnes loved Renard's miraculous late news, paintings whose rotund volumes and luminous flesh are so erotically charged as those of Rubens and Titian, or Titian. And at the Barnes Foundation, where Rubens is stationed next to Renard, who is in earshot of Matisse, Titian, and Bonnard. Such comparisons are self-evident. Yet the magnificence of the foundation is much greater than the sum of its masterpieces. The installation puts the nature and language, the very life of art, above any simple work. Packed wall to wall, the collection is hung cell in style, without regard for the trappings of isms, periods, or styles. Barnes, who oversaw every detail of the museum's creation, intermixed the past with the present and organized pictures and objects visually and thematically into his symbols. He created an environment that erased the business as usual distinction between classical and primitive, ancient and modern, among applied, decorative in the arts. Paintings, drawings, and prints elbow one another as if to stand out from the crowd. And they are surrounded by other captivating objects including ironwork, textiles, powder, pottery, African masks, Navajo rugs, toy cars, jewelry, medieval carvings, illustrated manuscripts, early American furniture, and American folk art. Yet another of Barnes' pioneering enthusiasm. So, I just want to pause for a moment. We are about 20 minutes in already. So, looking at that first painting on that first page, it's called Henri Matisse Seated Riffian, 1912. So it kind of looks like the seated Riffian is sitting in a kind of Buddhist position. If you look at that picture on the very, very first page, he looks like he is sitting in that position because he's sitting down. His legs are crossed, his arms are in his lap, and he is probably meditating and contemplating something very, very spiritually profound. There we go. That's a spiritual connection right there on Yannick and Neil. So he's sitting there, And Henry Matisse's paintings are very, very colorful, and also there's a simplicity to the paintings. What might he be sitting on? Almost like there's like a water bed of tomatoes that just kind of came up, on his ankles because of that red piece of what he is sitting on. So he's sitting down, and then you can see his legs. Maybe it's like a table, like some tables. Because if you look at the image, I'm just going to show you. If you look at the image, it looks like one of those tables where you can see your reflection in, like the mirror of the table. And so it's almost as if he is sitting amongst like a modern red table where you can see your reflection in it, and it is reflecting back to us his legs. So it's also something. And if you also look, he's wearing a kind of robe, so he might be in a monastery, or he might be in someone practicing Buddhism or something like that. A monk, probably, because the other thing is that if you look at the background, it is Henry Matisse's sort of version of the Force. So I think that he is really painting a picture of the Buddha. Because the thing about the Buddha is the story of it is he was in a palace amongst so many riches, foods, and you know, uh, the finer things in life, basically. And he was like, one day he was like, oh well, I kind of want a different life. I want to feel nourished in my soul. I want to get out of the spotlight of being in this position of power. So he went off into the woods, shaved his head, you know, and sat down and meditated for many, many long hours. And through that meditation, he connected with his higher self. He connected with his higher power. He connected with the divine. And he found spiritual enlightenment. So I believe that Henry Matisse is painting me a picture of this. And the word is illustrating that, by the way. Now, the other thing that I do want to point out that is an also indicator of this is that there is no hair on his head. It is shaved off, basically. So if you look at the head of the man on the first page, you will not see any hair. You won't see hair. You will not see hair because he shaved it off, because he got it shaved off. Because there is something to the purity of people practicing Buddhism or monks. Something to that purity. The aim is to find purity and to live a life of purity, and that involves making a lot of sacrifices like that. So, moving on to the next page, I'm going to read through the page and then sort of discuss this artwork. Now, on the next page, you can see the painting that I was just describing. Well, at least giving my interpretation to it. I was describing that painting, and then on the next page, you can see it in amongst a building or a cathedral. Right here, you can see that right there. So you can see the painting in the wall. And then there's another painting. But the other detail that I also want to point out here is what to be found above the painting. What can be found up in the ceilings. And it looks like a bunch of people that are nude, that are naked. So this is what it looks like. So, a bunch of people that do not appear to have any clothes on. And so that was part of maybe something that he was trying to get at. And so they're, doing some weird stuff with each other. I don't know what they're doing. There is something to the fact that when people have sex, ... This is getting a little bit touchy for me, so I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm going to move on from that. Okay. My hands are shaking. Okay. Here in this living museum where plastic formal values are made paramount, nothing is supplemented or taken for granted. Everything is in chorus and plays its part. Albert Coombs Barnes believed that the chief value of a democratic society is that it enables every individual the unique opportunity to better himself culturally and spiritually. He thought the key to self awareness is the study of art, philosophy, music, and literature. Driven by his love of art and ideas, he created a new species of museums. Barnes was not interested in amazing um, an art collection to bolster his ego or to impress his friends. Although he collected a wide array of art and artifacts, he was not interested in creating an encyclopedic or rational collection like that of the Finbergian Metropolitan Museum of Art. And although he was a passionate advocate of the European avant-garde, Barnes wrote extensive critical monographs on Renoir, Cézanne, and Maurice. He was not primarily concerned, as with the Museum of Modern Art, founded in 1929, with introducing that group of artists to the American public. Barnes' interest was in the living nature of artworks. He set up dialogues among works of various periods and diverse styles to emphasize similarities where most museums emphasize the distinctions. Barnes understood that the ancient Greeks, Titian, Rubens, Renoir, and Matisse, far from disconnected, are links in the chain. Barnes wanted people to appreciate how artists think, how artists are inspired, how art furthers art. He strove to emphasize a work's sublime as opposed to its mimetic values. In his writings, he compared learning to see to learning a foreign language and stressed that thought through the art, through the act of developing our senses, our perceptions are heightened and our lives made richer. Vision and intelligence, Barnes wrote, are co-implicative. Neither is possible without the other, and all growth involves their interaction. So this general principle furnishes us with the clue to aesthetic education. We perceive only what we have learned to look for, both in life and in art. To appreciate a painting, we must reconstruct the artist's experience. So far we are able, in ourselves, to see as the artist sees in an accomplishment to which there is no shortcut, which cannot be acquired by any major formula or trick. It requires not only the best energies of which we are capable, but a methodical direction of those energies based upon scientific understanding of the meaning of art and in its relation to human nature. The artist illuminates the objective world for us, exactly as does the scientist, different as the terms are in which he in envisages it. Art is as little as a plaything, a matter of caprice or uncontrolled subjectivity as is physics or chemistry. So how many pages are left of this? Okay, to this end, Barnes created an environment where aesthetic values override all others, where viewers are encouraged to make visual connections to discover that a Matisse or Picasso made could have walked directly off of a Greek vase, that Van Gogh's inanimate frontality His volumetric figures held within flat planes of yellow is no different from that of a Byzantine Madonna held within planes of flat gold lace. That, moreover, Van Gogh's nervous, swirling line and compartmentalized spaces are equally related to early Netherlandish painting, Japanese prints, and Impressionists. That art, like human nature, is not linear but cyclical. Barnes wanted to empower people to experience art, and by extension, life, at its most profound levels in 1930. When Matisse first visited the foundation, he wrote in his notebook that it was the only sane place to view art in America. That same year, he remarked in an interview, then stepped past Richard's death. But Matisse was overly optimistic. The Barnes Foundation never influenced other museums and remained a completely unique institution, immune from the post-war homogenization of the American museum establishment. Over the years, though, it became a target of that establishment which coveted the art that Barnes had acquired long before it became fashionable. Now, after years of litigation, Albert Barnes's intentions have been subverted and his will broken, and the Barnes Foundation is scheduled to be moved. Galleries have already been closed, ground broken, pictures crated. The thousands of artworks are all being uprooted from their home in Mexico, Pennsylvania, Marion, Pennsylvania, a leafy suburb 20 minutes from downtown Philadelphia, and transplanted to the mall of the Benjamin Franklin Parkway next to the Philadelphia Museum. Advocates claim the relocation is being done in the name of progress, conversation, civic responsibility, and convenience. It all sounds benign enough if you fail to consider that the Barnes Foundation, unlike almost every other museum in the world, is a rooted organism. Yes, the artworks will arrive in Philadelphia, but the museum, the experience of its art, will be irreversibly maimed. And with its move there will be considerable collateral damage extending to the broader areas of museum stewardship, museum donors, and the public trust, besides violating the legal will and stated intentions of the Foundation's sole benefactor, who stipulated that no work in his collection ever be loaned. Since the deaccessioned or moved from the building he had designed for it, that no object ever stray, not even an inch, from the precious spot in which he had personally placed it. The move is an unforgivable act that discards the true purpose of museums. The Barnes Foundation was established in 1922 as a non-discriminatory school for art and philosophy. Its two-story Renaissance-style building was completed in 1925 and ensconced in a 12-acre arboretum, sits deep within a sloping yard behind a wrought iron fence, surrounded by lilac groves, formal rows, and perennial gardens, and one of the finest collections of ferns and rare trees in America, designed by Paul Philippe Cret. The building is itself a distinguished work of art. Barnes had commissioned Jacques Lipchitz to, or however you pronounce the shiz, I really don't know, to carve 8 sculptures and use them for the museum's exterior. Infield pottery and tile works fabricated the entrance to Barnes' specifications, incorporating motifs from works in his African art collection, while other museums were displaying African tribal objects as ethnographic artifacts. Barnes like Braque and Picasso recognized their aesthetic value. The entrance is an eclectic interplay of neoclassicism, primitivism, and modernism. Doric columns, arts and crafts, ceramics, and African-inspired and modern sculpture, the last Barnes well understood in depth to the former intermingle. You know immediately you are entering a world where hierarchies and cultural identities dissolve, and where art, no matter when or where it was made, is in concert. The art is installed in a suite of 24 interconnected galleries of varying dimensions spread over 2 floors in the refined, intimate spaces made it as much manor as museum. Picture by picture, room by room, juxtaposition by juxtaposition, you get to know what Barnes was trying to convey about the nature of art. Though sequentially numbered, the galleries are in no discernible order, and there are no distracting wall labels. If you are interested in who, what, where, or when, each gallery is equipped with laminated photographs of its walls, each labeled with names, dates, titles, and province. It is the main gallery, the central trunk and heart of the Barnes, from which all the other galleries are fed and grow, literally and metaphorically across disciplines and time. Though the largest room at the Barnes, the main gallery, is small by modern museum standards, only 53 feet long and just over 22 feet wide, yet its vaulted ceiling, which rises 33 feet, gives the space the loftiness of a cathedral, and its installation in built upward and across like a stained glass window, specifically a tree of Jesse, one of the most constant subjects of Western art, linking the Barnes to both Chartres and the Sistine Chapel. Barnes envisioned the museum as a family album, in which artworks relate to one another like sisters, brothers, and cousins. Familial resemblances are emphasized, without ever detracting from the individual work of art. Barnes understood that artists are inspired by numerous impressions from disparate sources. In his museum, one does not receive a lesson in art history, rather one joins into a meditation on art. Entering the main gallery, you are confronted with pivotal paintings by the two pillars of 20th century art. A Rose period Picasso composition, The Peasants, 1906, hangs between the windows to your right. In soft pinks, powder blues, and warm grays, it alerts us to the pre-dawn of Cubism. Its faceted figure grouping of oxen, a girl, and a man with a basket of flowers on his head feels like a bas relief. These are not just peasants, but as much Greek god and goddess struggling through the plain as a single organism, um, strutting through the plain as a single organism. Near the Picasso, between the window to your left, hangs a Moroccan period Maurice, seated Riffon, 1912, nearly abstract in dazzling, saturated hues. The painting's jeweled light colors and the figure's majestic pose equally suggest a precious gem in the portrait of a king. The painting's transparent light-filled curtains and vertically striped planes, resembling the mullions, curtains, and glass of its neighboring windows, appear to punctuate the architecture of the main gallery. The Matisse and Picasso, changing peasants into deities, ruffians into royalty, and walls into windows, attest not only to the transformative power of painting, but to the transformative power of this museum. Above the two paintings, as if anchored by and unfurled from those below, is Matisse's Dion Music Mural, the Dance 1932 to 33, spanning more than 43 feet across the three lunettes. Commissioned by Barnes in 1930, it is among Matisse's greatest and largest works. Matisse took into consideration that the dance would be experienced alongside very specific paintings and views of sky and gardens seen through the window, which were often left open during spring, summer, and fall. The painter allowed nature's greens to complement painted pink, for blue sky to speak to sky blue, and for the dance, as graphic and bold as it is, to blend with spring's rapture and the blaze of fall foliage. Matisse formed beings that merge woman with goddess and succeed in transforming gallery into spiritual setting. The mural is a celebration of art that moreover unifies nature, artworks, and architecture at the Barnes Foundation. This goes on, this goes on, this goes on, this goes on. I'm tired. Oh, this is getting very, very exhausting to do. But I promised myself that I'm going to get through all the things I need to get through here on today's session. So, I'm going to take a little break, and then I'm going to come back to it. So this is a little song break. This is a little musical break. Make me listen, look down with the listen. No, I know it feels kind of silly. Okay. So, let me just continue on here through this article. Okay, here we go. So let me just find where I was here. So it says, continuing on, I am on page number. No, there's no page numbers. All of you should know where I am. Near the Picasso, between the windows to your left, hangs a Moroccan period Matisse, Sated Rivian 1912, merely abstract and dazzling, saturated hues. The paintings, gold-like colors, and the figures' majestic pose equally suggest a precious gem in the portrait of a king. The painting's transparent light-filled curtains and vertically striped planes, resembling the millions curtains and glass of its neighboring windows, appear to punctuate the architecture of the main gallery. The Matisse and Picasso changing peasants into deities, ruffians into royalty. I've already read this part. I can't believe that I did that. So I'm just gonna skip actually to, I'm on page 21. I'm looking at moving laterally. So it says, moving laterally, a combination of thrust and counter-thrust of anger and loft. The dance's 8 large, soft gray female nudes spread across the 3 lunette-like acrobats. The nudes appear to billow and bulge within the vaulted arcs of the architecture. They are goddesses, caryatids, and flying buttresses. They are grounded, held to the walls by flat, sharp-edged planes of black and blue, and they are serrated, or R-rated by planes of pink. The nudes swell into ecstatic volumes and tumble through the arcs across the upper wall, opening the architecture and penetrating the dome of the ceiling. It is as if they have fallen from the sky and been caught in the gallery's net. They are the soul of the Barnes collection and the engine that animates the whole installation. Matisse observed of his mural that from the floor of the gallery one will feel it rather than see it, as it gives the sense of sky above the green conveyed by the windows. The great hall is a room for paintings. To treat my decoration like another picture would be out of place. My aim has been to translate paint into architecture, to make of the fresco the equivalent of stone. Barnes, who had given Matisse complete freedom to paint the lunettes however he desired, at once knew the significance of the dance. One would call the place a cathedral now, he told Matisse after the mural was installed. Your painting is like the rose window. Matisse agreed and added that the dance is like a song that mounts to the vaulted roof. Facing the dance are 11 paintings by Cézanne and 22 by Renoir, mostly the latter's pearlescent late nudes, as soft as feathers, as iridescent as gems, as weighty as great oaks, crowning a dozen paintings on the east wall, including a Tintoretto, a Corot, and a work attributed to Chardin, is Cézanne's monumental large banners. This painting, summoning equally the Pantheon and Poussin, is somewhere between procession and pastoral. Its 8 luminous female nudes, an animated and restless frise, bathe and towel themselves in a dappled blue and green shaded glade, looking back and forth between the frieze of 8 figures in large bathers and the frieze of 8 above in Matisse's The Dance. It is nearly impossible not to feel that the bathers and the dancers are related, implying before and after immersion and anticipation, rest and flight. The connections are ever apparent. Corot, Courbet, Impressionism, and Cézanne freed Matisse and Picasso to reinvent the art of the 19th century for the 20th century. But modernism's roots, Barnes understands, go much deeper. As a beginning painter, Matisse made his first copies in the Louvre of Chardin, and as Barnes himself wrote, Picasso's composition, The Peasants, was a reinvention of El Greco's faceted, fractured space. That El Greco was a spur to Cubism. Renoir brings us full circle. Though initially seduced by Impressionism's miraculous pyrotechnics, Renoir eventually saw it as a blind alley. He sought to reinvent Impressionism's atomized light with the structure and geometry of the old masters. Looking back, specifically to Rubens, Renoir opened the doors for Cézanne's own return, though Poussin to the cube, the cone, and the sphere, the building blocks of Cubism, which shattered Renaissance space and led to modern abstraction. Renard, although he was too grounded in his love of the female form to become an abstract artist, sympathized with the aims of Kandinsky. Renard too dreamed of dispensing completely with the world of things in his pictures. He wrote, he relished the complete freedom of abstraction, and he understood his role as well as that of Picasso and Matisse, respectively, in the movement toward non-objective painting. But Renard recognized also that the fruits of abstract art belong to the next generation. Late in Renard's life, Matisse visited him. In all truthfulness, Renard told the younger painter, "I don't like what you do. It's almost like to say that you are not a good painter, or even that you are a very bad painter. But one thing prevents me from doing this. When you put black on the canvas, it stays in its place. So in spite of my feeling, I think that you are most surely a painter." Barnes' installation, especially his pairings of Matisse with Renard and Seurat with Cézanne, acknowledge and reiterates the language and interconnectedness of art, the links between Renard and Rubens, Matisse and Pinard, Picasso and El Greco. How long is this? Okay. On the other hand, the West Wall among art assembles a smaller work by Cézanne, Covert, and Rousseau, two further monumental paintings. Cézanne's card players 1890 to 92, and hanging directly above it, Seurat's large models. Together they demonstrate how specific pictures appear to have been made in answer to one another, as if in a magical world of call and response, and set in motion an idea that radiates throughout the whole of the collection. Barnes lays at the story of modernism here. He reminds us that Seurat's pointillist neoclassical haze, Renard's love of mass, shimmer, and curve, Chardin's plain-spoken volumes, Cézanne's fractured through solid geometries, Picasso's raptured plane, and Matisse's spare, buoyant eroticism are all interconnected and interdependent. The card players depicts three men at a table while a man and a child face us and observe the game. It combines multiple genres. The picture's tablecloth is both still life and landscape. The figure grouping, like a mountain, evokes Cézanne's paintings of Mont Saint-Victoire, and the wall holds its place, yet opens into sky-like airiness, and the whole alleviates the card game to the level of history painting. Cézanne is the father of modern art, and as at the Barnes, he is repeatedly given pride of place. More viscerally than any other modern painter, Cézanne got at the existential nature of seeing. He refused to ground us in a single fixed viewpoint, instead exploring relationships, relativity, and the act of seeing, of changing focus and location, as much as he explored the objects he depicted. In the card players, Cézanne continually moves our point of view in depth of field, creating shifting spatial pockets that force viewers to bounce constantly from location to location, from viewpoint to viewpoint. Cézanne breaks down forms into tessellating, anxious geometries. Yes. The building blocks of pictures. His works link the shivering, fiery contours of Renard and the twinkling pointillism of Seurat to the planar, faceting, and pared-down geometry of Cubism. Like Seurat, because Cézanne got solid from one step to abstract flight. Surratt's models pay homage to the nature of picture making, a bountiful theme taken up by artists as diverse as Delacroix, Vernier, Braque, Klee, and Balthus. Surratt depicted three nude models in a studio interior. On the left of the painting, leaning against the studio wall and providing backdrop and window, is Surratt's now famous landscape, a Sunday afternoon on the island of La Grande Tout, whatever that is. Cluttering the studio are parasols, clothes, and still life objects, props recognizable from many Surratt paintings. The central model is life-size. She faces viewers and with a tilt of her head seems to contemplate us as much as we contemplate her. The other two models flanking her are seated, one adjusting her stocking is in profile. The third has her back to us, bridging landscape and interior. She actually leans into the space of La Grande Fate. Together they suggest that the three graces, another ageless theme, often engaged, but also an artist pondering the same model in the separate states of poising, dressing, and undressing. The standing maid is the muse of the main gallery at the Barnes. She links picture, subject, and viewer. Like the figureheads of a ship, she pulls the entire interior forward, warping the perspective of the room and reiterating the artifice of painting in the flatness of the canvas as a picture unfolds within a picture, and the nature of picture making unfolds within the great hall at the Barnes. The Surratt and the Cézanne appear to spill out of and support each other in the Barnes' hanging. Surratt's central maid seems to have grown straight out of the pyramidal base of the Cézanne. Taken as a pair, the two paintings, broken down into primary elements, color lines, simple geometric forms, genres, and layered metaphoric themes, present to us all the necessary ingredients of painting. At the Barnes, it is important, impossible. At the Barnes, it is impossible not to feel on some deep level that all the artworks are instrumental. Thus, that despite their relative merit, some works are, of course, stronger than others. They form a choir in which all voices contribute to the great sum of art. You have to push yourself to do things in life. You can't just expect yourself to feel like doing them. Okay, a medieval doctor and chemist, Albert Barnes, made a furniture marketing article a breakthrough anesthetic drug. At the beginning of the 20th century, he began collecting modern European paintings, works that very few people then acknowledged as art. Initially, he sent his friend and former classmate, the painter William Gakins, to Europe to buy pictures for him. In time, empowered by his newfound love of modern painting, he went on his own buying sprees at galleries and auction houses. Barnes frequently traveled to Europe, where he got to know Leo and Gertrude Stein, who introduced him to Picasso. He avidly collected Matisse, Cézanne, and Picasso long before the scandalous 1913 Armory show introduced the European avant-garde to the United States and caused these artists to be branded charlatans and degenerates. Barnes had been inspired by the ideas of William James and John Dewey, whose lectures on scientific education Barnes attended at Columbia University in 1918. Barnes and Dewey became friends who shared and furthered each other's ideas and philosophies. Dewey stressed the importance of learning by doing and of education as a means of investigation and inquiry. Education did not, as Dewey's estimation, amount to the acquisition of facts, but to the strengthening of one's perceptive and cognitive skills. Barnes applied Dewey's methods to looking at art, a study of which was grounded not in theory but in everyday experience. Dewey in turn learned from Barnes how to look at art, both ancient and modern, and was applying Barnes' perceptions when he developed a philosophy he put forth in art as experience. A book dedicated to Barnes, Dewey held that aesthetic experience, life experience are inseparable and cultivate one another. Okay. This is getting very, very long. Very long and monotonous. I can't do this. I can't do it. I can't do it. I just cannot do this. I can't do it. I am exhausted. I am exhausted. So I'm just gonna stop reading and just do something else. So everyone, you can put your things away. And I'm just gonna play some soft, soothing music and then continue on with this, but probably in a different way because I'm exhausted. That reminds me of a song. Love can only be lost. With love can only be gained. You feel that things will change. You want them to stay the same forevermore. In the light. Oh, 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 oh. Okay, everybody, I think I'm going to just call this meeting quits. You can find this meeting on my channel. It will be published there. Oh, I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I have given my mental energy into this, and it's not working. I'm totally exhausted. It is like nails on a chalkboard for you and nails on a chalkboard for me to read this out loud. Oh, I just don't like doing this. I can't do it anymore. I'm done. I am done. I have enough on my mental plate right now to deal with. So anyway, that's all for this meeting, everybody. Thank you for coming in and listening to me read a very boring and dry, meaningless article to you. So, bye.